So yeah, I'm a bit of an imposter today. Aberdeenshire boy coming down to roll over 5, who would have thought. So I'll be talking to you today about the Northern Picts project. This is going to be a whistle-stop tour of what we've been doing for the last few years in 20 minutes. Basically, our project was established in 2012, and it's looking at or working after Alex Wolff, the historian, recognised that one of the most powerful kingdoms, and possibly the overall kingship of England, or two, is actually located up in the Moray Firth region rather than central Scotland, as we once assumed. So our project is really looking at two different areas of Northern England, for two, Easter Ross and Kay, which is modern-day Aberdeenshire. And I think what's quite clear today is, from Fraser's talk and various other ones, is that something quite interesting is possibly happening in this late Roman period. So the Picts first mentioned in AD 297, and there's also been speculation as to whether the Picts represent political consolidation in this period, or is it simply the Romans don't really know what's going on up in these northerly areas by the late Roman period. I think hopefully we'll see today that there is possibility for this political consolidation in that late Roman context. So our project has been looking at a whole series of different sites, but two of the common aspects of our project is looking at the development of these things, forts, fortified sites, which clearly become central to how kingship is organised and identified in this period. Kings are people who engage in warfare, and this involves construction and use of large-scale fortifications like the site at Parkhead. But what date are they, and what characterises their use and function? And also symbol stones. Clearly, we can see from some later examples that these are again central to high status identities. So we've got two figures here on this monument, possibly sitting on thrones, and are marked by symbols. Likewise, we've got someone on horseback here, marked by two symbols. I think this is an early form of writings, an early form of marking high status identities. And then you can see other symbols of power on the stone, tongs, hammer and anvil of metalworking. Analysis showed just how important silver metalworking is in this time period. So again, can we trace the kind of origins and development of some of these elements? So, as I say, our project is working right across northern Scotland, lots of different sites. I'm only going to talk to you about two today. But this is a number of sites we've been investigating over the last few years, quite a few. But two sites I want to tell you about today. One is Dunnicaer, which is on the eastern coast of Aberdeenshire, and this is the site here, this little sea stack just off the coast of Aberdeenshire. This is our intrepid team on the way to investigate this site. Why are we here? Well, just round in the next bay is this iconic site in Aberdeenshire, Beannachar Castle. Reference has been under siege in the 7th century AD, so clearly probably an important Pictish power centre in that time period. But there may well have been an earlier one at Dunnicaer. It was discovered, the site was discovered in the 1830s by a bunch of youths from the local village of Dunnicaer who went digging for gold on top of the sea stack. They didn't find gold. What they did find was some of these fantastic stones, which is very similar to some of the carvings you've got in your Weems Cave. And like the Weems Cave examples, they've either been seen as kind of very late degenerate or made by people who were not very skilled, or possibly quite early in sequence. So you can see double discs and very fancy set rods as you've got on the Weems Cave, crescents, the salmon, etc. And this is our investigations of the site. It's also a tidal location today, so a bit of a challenge. You can imagine university health and safety officers love this kind of work. This is us working on top of the sea stack today. But you can see it was a much larger stack at one point, so we probably lost a large proportion of what was here. What did we find? Well, over the last 2 years, we found essentially what the youth found in the 1830s. They record finding a stone wall, a low stone wall, and that was the contents of these symbol stones. And so here are the foundations of the wall. Not much stonework remaining today. It's actually quarried away or reused in the 19th century. You can see stone facing, and these are little foundation slots for big timber beams. What essentially we have here at Dunnicaer is a little fortified promontory with buildings and structures inside. So if you don't believe that people were living at the top of here, this is the evidence. You've got hearths here, and all this kind of dirty grey material here is actually floor layers from buildings. And even buildings right on what we romantically call the lower terrace today. It's about not much bigger than this table here. Slight exaggeration, but you can see we actually have hearths and floor layers preserved in this lower terrace. Even superimposed hearths. This is a hearth found underneath this one during this year's excavations. You can see the black layers of charcoal being raked out the hearths of these buildings. And even parts of the ramparts and structures extending onto the narrow finger of the peninsula, and metal surfaces as well, leading you into this fortified promontory. Some nice finds, evidence for metalworking and burnishing stones, and also a piece of Roman Samian pottery, very unusual in northeast Scotland, only a handful of shrubs in the snow, showing long distance connections to the Roman world. What's most exciting, I guess, about our work at Dunnicaer is the dating for this fortified promontory. So really, what we've shown in other sites is that this tradition of fortified centres really seems to reach its peak in the 5th and 6th centuries AD. But Dunnicaer is right at the start of the sequence. So this is 400 AD, this is 200 AD. We now have 10 Beannachar dates from the site, which show it was constructed sometime in either the 2nd or likely the 3rd century AD, and goes on in use until probably the late 4th century, 345 to 426 AD. So we have a very clear late Roman context for the site, and I think we have a very clear, probably 3rd, 4th century context for the carvings at Dunnicaer, which I think really highlights just how exciting the Weeds Caves examples are, and the calcite material, in terms of we're probably looking at the origins of Pictish art and the origins of that early form of writing that emerges beyond the boundaries of the Roman Empire. And just to show that we follow all health and safety regulations, this is one of our team members getting kitted up just to go over the fence to get over to the site and actually eating our sandwich. Right, so that's Dunnicaer, our second site in our grand and very rapid tour through Northern England. There's this site here, Rhynie, which is just west of Aberdeenshire, and it has this fantastic place name, which derives from this early Celtic word, Pictish word, Rhyn for king. It seems to mean a place associated with a great king. Bit of a clue as to what was going on there. It also has a fantastic assemblage of Pictish stones, and you can see much more accomplished than Dunnicaer examples. Again, that beautiful flow of line in the carvings here. A whole series of stones, 8 of these standing stone monuments, including this one here, the cross king, which still stands in its original position, which is quite unusual. And probably the most famous carving from Rhynie is this guy here, the right man, with his axe carried over his shoulder, with his big pointy teeth. The cross name, as I say, still stands in a field just outside the modern village of Rhynie today. And when Rhynie man was found, he was found just down a slope from here. And you can see this fantastic series of crop marks that were identified by our Aberdeen Archaeology Service from the late 1970s onwards, showing these ditches, and this thin line here is a big wooden wall, so we call a palisade or a box run that surrounds this little knoll on which the site sits. So in 2012, we investigated an area right next to the cross name, and often when we say see these stones standing in the landscape today. We imagine them being very romantically isolated. You can see that this was located next to a very busy location. But what we essentially have at Rhiney is another fortified complex. And these standing stones, Pictish stones, stand at the entranceway into a very high status settlement. So these postals here are from buildings, timber buildings, larger buildings as well. These are the two ditches, and then there's the wooden enclosure wall on the outside there. And what's really kind of cements how important the site is some of the finds. So again, like Fraser was saying, some of these things don't look very much, but they're kind of little fragments, little clues that help us piece together the story of the site. So these shelves of pottery here are actually late Roman amphora, probably dating to the late 5th or early 6th century. And these are probably for storing wine, and they come from the Eastern Mediterranean. Okay, so people at Rhiney were drinking Mediterranean wine in the 6th century. And in that case, they were in a custom company. There were very few sites with this material across Western and Northern Britain. You see Rhiney's the northernmost example, the only example in the whole of Eastern Britain. So these people were tied into networks of power which extended all the way to the Mediterranean. And then we also have shards of continental glass coming from France, and these are from drinking beakers, the kind of thing we drink your Mediterranean wine out of in the 5th and 6th centuries AD. And again, incredibly unusual material for this period. We also have evidence for production and consumption of high status metalwork. So again, Alice showed you how important silver is here. What's even rarer than the actual objects themselves is evidence for production of these. So we have things like molds for making brooches, metalworking tongs for fine metalworking. And this fantastic object is an iron dress pin with a serpent biting onto the end of an axe, just like the axe that the Rhiney man carries. So we're beginning to identify objects seen on the symbol stones actually during the excavations of these sites. So over the last 2 years, we've been trying to add more detail to our work at Rhiney. And this was our work in 2015, showing the fantastic landscape context of Rhiney, located in the shadow of one of the most impressive hill forts in Scotland, Tappin North, which may well have been an Iron Age tribal centre or gathering place, and could well have been reused in the Pictish period as well. And then this is the crossdale here, and this is the outer wooden wall. You can see the planks that form the structure with posts in here, and then this is the entranceway to the fort. So you can see the crossdale stands at the entranceway into this complex. And one of the exciting finds we had in 2015, I mentioned earlier that the Rhiney man was found just down slope from the crossdale. Well, we found a large stone socket, which was clearly for holding a large stone, a large monument. You can see all the packing stone here, and we have dates for this feature that go from the 4th to the 5th centuries AD. So it's highly likely that the Rhiney man or another one of the symbol stones from Rhiney stood in the socket, and again it's standing at the entranceway into this high status enclosure. So we're beginning to sketch out the ground plan. So this is the outer wooden wall here. These are all the huge giant posts that supported that outer wall. And this is the entranceway in. And that's one of the symbol stones, and that's the stone socket. You can see they're on your left as you would have went into this complex. And what we're really beginning to be able to do now is pin down again the chronology of these fortified centres and also the chronology of symbol stones. So you can see again this is mapping some of the radiocarbon dates. So the Dunnicaer starting here maybe in the 2nd or 3rd centuries AD, ending by probably 400 AD. Rhiney starts somewhere in that 4th century context and is ended by 550 AD. So again the symbol stones are century AD in context, maybe even peeking into the 4th century AD. And then you can see some of the other forts, things like Craig, these much larger hill forts, are actually quite a late phenomenon. They're a 6th century AD or later context. So it looks like we've got more modest forts, things like writing different types of sites like Dunnicaer in this early period. And what we usually see is the kind of iconic Pictish sites being quite late in this overall sequence. So writing 2016, what did we get up to? We're looking again at some of the other areas of the complex. You can just make out the palisade coming around here, ditches as well, and again the cross beam sitting here. One fantastic result this year was that we got evidence for a building, an oval building, standing right next to the cross dame itself. And the cross dame actually faces the entranceway to this building, this timber, probably turf structure. We also had some more nice finds. This is again a little clue as to what's going on. This is another shard of glass from another drinking beaker, from an entirely different trade network. This is a Germanic tradition glass, either coming from the continent or maybe from Anglo-Saxon England, of the type again not found previously in Picts before. And then on the left here, it doesn't look like much, but this is actually the palisade slot with the outer wall. You can just make out the posts here, and on this side, this is planks. So these are big oak planks that have been cut down to size, and we're getting fantastic architectural detail of how complex the structure was for this high status Pictish site. And then what happened this year as well was just we went find crazy. So we had some nice finds in previous years, but the sheer volume of finds this year was at times difficult to cope with. This is my colleague Oscar and Dan here. And over a 2-hour stretch one afternoon, we had something like 110 finds, almost all of them metalworking molds. So we've got evidence for production on a scale we hadn't really quite gathered before. This includes crucibles, almost complete crucibles here, and so many molds we couldn't really count them, and half of them we haven't seen yet because they're down where they receive archaeology being conserved. But we have molds for making large annular brooches of the type you see in the Norris Law Hoard, brooches for lots and lots of pins, including molds for making those hand pins. So you remember the hand pins from Norris Law and Goldcross? Prior to our work, there was 2 molds known in Scotland for making hand pins. We've got at least a dozen turned up this summer. So we've got production on a scale, again, never really seen before. And then objects we just haven't really quite seen before in Pictlands. These we think are little crucible stands, sort of little stands for putting crucibles and pouring your metal into, and also crucibles themselves, which have this very distinctive residues on it, which is either from silver working or perhaps from enamel working. So again, they're making the actual objects you see in the Norris Law and Goldcross hoards at sites like the Ring. And then we have things like these. These are ingot molds, so they're actually making ingots at Ring. So these are little, much simpler stone molds here for pouring, again, silver, bronze, I'm not quite sure yet, into these to make the kind of raw materials you might trade with across northern Britain in this time period. Little rods for glass working, and also show similarities to symbols. So this is a bit dark, you can't see, but this little mold here has the triple dot design, which you do find on other Pictish symbol stones. This is our supervisor's wedding ring, which is based on a set of symbols from Aberdeenshire in Germany, so it shows the triple dots and the spiral. So again, we're finding molds for the actual objects that you see, or wherever they are, symbols depicted on Pictish symbol stones. And then off the press, other molds. This is a mold for a hind or a wolf. You can see its back legs here, tail, front legs, and the head. And this is closely similar to things like the Argos wolf. So they're actually making metalwork objects, which again resemble the Pictish symbols. So that's absolutely amazing. And again, none of this dates later than 550 AD. So again, taking down the chronology for this millwork and for these symbols. And we have at least half a dozen of these molds. Again, they actually need to be considered. There's another mold, a serpent. You can see his snout here, his eye, and then his body curving down here. And he's just like the serpent on the little axe pin we found a few years ago. So, as you can imagine, we're quite excited by these results. And then this is a high status site, undoubtedly the sort of place where a king and his retinue might gather. What do we have? We've got pieces of weaponry as well, turning and riding. So this is a pommel for a sword, and it's either bronze or silver. Again, we need to get this analysed. And again, exceptionally rare for Pictland. And then another one off the press. On the last day, as always, we found this iron object that doesn't look like much in the ground. This is the X-ray, which shows that it's a very distinctive type of knife. And you can really see these zigzag design here. And this is inlaid decoration, which is probably of another metal, maybe silver or bronze. And this is a type of weapon you only find in the highest status Anglo-Saxon burials. These are again objects associated with very powerful people in this early medieval context. Okay, up from the archaeology, we had some fantastic community work going on at mining. We have an amazingly engaged community, including this local group, artist group of writing women, who run all sorts of pop-up cafes and exhibitions, help us work with the schools, local schools, coming to visit the site. So we try and take this kind of academic research out as I retire and extend it to the wider community. If you want to find out more, we have a Facebook group called Picts. We also have a Twitter account, which I'm just trying to get my head around how to use. You can follow us on Twitter.